Hello folks, so today I wanted to talk to you about the topic of a kind of video that I see a lot on YouTube. Maybe this is a little bit more about me than anything else, but it is the desktop setup slash gym equipment setup, any kind of thing where it's like, hey, this is my productive desktop setup 2021, that sort of thing. These kinds of videos are interesting and they typically seem very pleasant on the surface. They seem very cool. I ended up, of course, making one myself not that long ago, but I think that while these videos initially seem very innocent, they seem very cool, they kind of have a very weird undertone that becomes more evident when you start to watch more of them. Very often what ends up happening is not that, hey, someone's showing off to you like the cool things that are helping them be ultra productive, but instead it's just very blatantly turning into a kind of advertisement where, of course, the YouTuber is trying to make some money by selling you some goofy gadgets and accessories that nobody really needs. And of course, while not everybody who watches the video is immediately going to be like, hey, I need that exact chair or that exact standing desk or whatever the case is, that's still something that works. Like, it does affect people. Some of the people who see those videos are going to go on to buy those specific products simply because they're being advertised. And that's how those YouTubers are going to make money. And it's just another way that very often what we see on YouTube is just advertising. It's not actually good content. It is just advertising that is sold to us as something else. So, as always, do not hesitate to smash that like button. Every time you smash that like button, you save one himbo around the world from shedding a single tear. We want to alleviate the sad burden of sad himbos around the world. So do not hesitate to smash that like button, and I will move on with the rest of the video. So the general format of this kind of video that I'm talking about is pretty simple. Someone is saying, hey, I'm a very productive guy, I'm a very productive gal. This is what my desktop looks like. These are the products and the tools that I use to unleash superhuman levels of productivity, or whatever the case is. However, when you kind of watch these videos a little bit more closely, you start to pick up on these sort of subtle details that's not really actually what they're talking about at all, and that it's really just a subtle advertisement. Very often what you tend to find is that someone is not talking about sort of the things that are most important. So, for example, when I'm talking about what makes me productive, about my desktop setup, I would talk about a handful of things. I would say the fact that I've got a desktop computer is massive because it means that I can do all the kinds of work that I would not normally be able to do, of course, if I did not have a desktop. And then, of course, I've got two monitors, and that's great because it enables me to do all kinds of things. You know, I can have multiple windows open at once, and I can compare things, and especially when I'm, for example, trying to copy something out of one spreadsheet into another and so on, it's like, hey, I just need to have more monitor space so that I can have some windows on. And then likewise, I have this wonderful Bluetooth keyboard, which the main reason that I love it so much is not because it is fancy or because it is cool or because it's just a mechanical keyboard, but because the fact that it is Bluetooth means I can actually switch it between multiple devices very quickly. It actually presets several different settings, so you can actually just press a button and switch to a different device. Which is helpful, of course, because I actually have a second desktop as well. I have a Mac Mini, which I use for video editing, which is, of course, separate from my workhorse desktop that I use for mostly everything else. So, I'm talking to you right now. That's basically all the stuff that enables me to be super productive. Of course, there's all kinds of little peripherals, like a mouse, webcam, speakers, all the other things that I have as well. But those are, of course, way less important. Those are, just not really that important at all. Likewise, I have this desk. It's an old IKEA desk. It's, covered in coffee stains, quite honestly. I haven't cleaned it in a little while. And, it's just this piece of wood to put something on. That's really all that you need. You don't need anything fancy in terms of having a desk. But when you watch a video from one of these productivity gurus who is saying, this is my productive desktop setup, that's not how they're going to frame it to you. That's not the kinds of things that they're going to show you. They're going to hyper-emphasize things like really cool mechanical keyboards or really cool accessories. And, they act like this is the key to being ultra productive. When, of course, those are, by definition, the things that are the least important when it comes to your productivity compared to the massive benefit of just having a nice desktop to work on, compared to not having that. And it can often be extra amusing because I tend to see that these kinds of YouTubers don't just make this video once, like they make it every few months, every year or so. They, it's like, oh, it's like 2021, so I'm going to slap, my productive desktop 2021, so I can do, like a comparison between this and what I did in 2020 or whatever the case is. And they're constantly acting like whatever new gadgets they've gotten are, again, the key to their massive productivity or whatever the case is. And curiously enough, you never hear them then talk again about the gadgets that they got in 2020. You never hear them, you just don't see them using all the things that they were saying before are actually the secret to their productivity. They're constantly just coming up with new gadgets that they can kind of, pitch to you or sell to you as the secret to their productivity, even when it sort of becomes clear that that's just not the case and they're just trying to sell you things. So the implication, of course, is that, maybe they thought they had a productive desktop setup before, but then they found a few more things and they got way more productive. But then this cycle basically infinitely continues so that they're always able to say, hey, I've found the missing piece that it unlocks my productivity and all that. And, at the end of the day, it's an endless cycle. It doesn't really end because that's not the point. The point is that they can then try and sell you new accessories that are fancy, that look cool, that are maybe expensive, so they can make more on commissions and so on, but are not actually super related at all to their productivity. I think the funniest version of this is a guy called Tech Lead. I don't really recommend his videos because he's kind of an asshole, honestly. And that's kind of his whole shtick, is like he's just kind of, kind of a crappy person online. And that's part of the draw of it, I guess. But it's actually quite interesting because he kind of inverts the traditional narrative that the reason that he's showing off his desk is because he's so productive and so on. In fact, he's been unemployed for a while. He talks openly about the fact that he basically lives in a room in his parents' basement now. He's got all kinds of money from his previous jobs and from making all of his YouTube videos. So he doesn't really need to do anything else to make a lot of money. He's got investments that make him a lot of money. And so he just kind of actively brags about how lazy he is and how, if you're working, you're a sucker because he can make so much more money from the stock market without having to work and so on. And he kind of brags about how this equipment enables him to be maximally lazy. Like he can just have all this cool equipment that he can afford because he's so rich and cool. And that means that he can play video games all day, maximally lazy, just he can play video games in the utmost comfort. and it's kind of bizarre because the message isn't so much like, hey, if you want to be cool and productive like me, you'll buy all these things. It's more like, hey, you loser, you suck. You can be more like a, I don't even know, you can be more of a cool person like I am who doesn't have to work if you buy this stuff because I'm just so much better than you. I don't know. It's very silly at the end of the day. It kind of lays bare how silly all of these other videos are in many ways. Naturally, of course, the goal here is not to actually educate people. It's not to actually give people sort of actual methods for improving their productivity or whatever the case is. It's just to be able to, show off some stuff, put some referral links down at the bottom, and then make some money when some people inevitably end up buying those things. These kinds of videos could be helpful and useful if they tended to show off the kinds of things that are actually important for productivity, but instead they tend to show off the bells and whistles that are less important. Sit-stand desks, fancy monitor arms, mechanical keyboards, fancy accessories, and so on, that by definition are just not going to be very helpful. Now, lest you end up thinking that this video is exclusively about productivity YouTubers or business YouTubers or whatever the case is, we have the exact same thing when it comes to fitness influencers and showing off their gym equipment. Usually it's just showing off a home gym setup that has all kinds of cool, fancy new equipment in it, and oh, this will allow me to work out, extra hard or whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, of course, these gyms are not necessarily going to be much more useful than just getting yourself a squat rack and a barbell and some plates, because that's really all that you need to have in order to have the, just a wide range of exercises that can do basically anything that you want to do with. So the video that actually inspired this one was a recent Juji Mufu video. He's basically, he's a really jacked guy. He does all kinds of videos showing off how jacked he is. He recently did a video showing off his new home gym. And something that really kind of struck me as particularly interesting is a part where he shows off a bar jack, and he's like, yeah, this is the coolest thing in the world. You've got to buy this. It's so important, etc. And I was just laughing because a bar jack is like the least important thing you could purchase in the world. So for people who don't know, a bar jack is basically a device that works kind of like a little lever that you use to lift a barbell very slightly off the floor. And the reason that you do this is that when you're putting plates on the barbell, especially when all the plates are exactly the same diameter, it can get hard after the first plate to keep putting more plates on because it's resting on the floor. The distance of the bar from the floor is the exact same height as the radius of that weight plate. And so when you go to put it on, it's going to be hard to put it on. This is a common thing, for people who do a lot of deadlifting. You'll see this all the time. And what happens is that if you then raise the bar a little bit further off of the floor, it becomes then incredibly easy to put on and take off plates simply because, again, it's a little bit higher off the floor and you no longer have to worry about the floor getting in the way when you're trying to slide a plate on. This is the definition of an unimportant accessory. Like, it saves you a little bit of time getting plates on and off, but it has no impact on the effectiveness of your workouts whatsoever. I would say that there are certain situations where a bar jack becomes especially useful. So for example, I used to work out at Westside Barbell once upon a time, forever ago. And when you're talking guys who can deadlift 800 pounds, and there are like 15 of them, and they've got to, you've got to change the weight for every single one of them, and you've got to kind of get them through very quickly. You have to change a lot of weights very quickly, and having a bar jack becomes almost necessary at that point because there's almost no other way to just quickly change plates and so on. At the same time, however, I want to emphasize this as much as I can possibly emphasize this. You don't even need a bar jack to do the same thing. All you have to do is get yourself a smaller plate, get yourself like a 10-pound plate, slide it under that very first plate, and that will then raise it a little bit off the floor, and then you can put your other plates on, and you do not have to spend any extra money because you already have plates at the gym that you can use for this trick by definition. You literally don't need a bar jack. But Juji Mufu is out here saying, hey, you need to buy this $75 or whatever super fancy bar jack because, of course, he is making money off of selling it to you. He is making commissions off of every single one that is purchased using his affiliate link or whatever the case is. Maybe it's just something where, of course, he got some kind of influencer deal where they agreed to give him some specific amount of money ahead of time, and it has nothing to do with affiliate links or whatever the case is. At the end of the day, again, it's just an advertisement for a silly accessory that basically nobody actually needs. It, saves you a little bit of time. It can be a little bit convenient, okay, but nobody needs it. And he's acting like it is the most important, the coolest, the best, the thing that is unlocking all of his gains, when that is obviously not the case. The same thing tends to happen a lot with the bicep blaster that you see a lot in like Instagram influencers doing, their bicep curls with a bicep blaster. That's basically like a piece of metal. You hang it from your neck and then it basically goes under your arms. And that way, when you're doing a bicep curl, you can do stricter bicep curls. At the same time, you don't have to get this piece of equipment in order to do strict bicep curls. You can just do strict bicep curls by focusing and paying attention on your form. And the bicep blaster is not going to provide you any additional benefit. It's nice. It can provide you it can be fun because, again, you can then lift a little bit more mindlessly and you don't have to focus on, getting your form just as strict. There's another thing also where it tends to make your biceps look a little bit bigger when you're showing off because, of course, you've got like something pressing on your arms from below. And so that means your arms look a little bit bigger because you've got the muscles being pressed out a little bit more. Instagram influencers love these things because they're basically a crap, piece of metal. They, they'll run you like 25 or $50. They make this person look super cool. They make this person look like they've got some secret training trick or whatever the case is, but they do essentially nothing. they're completely unimportant. They're like 0.001% of your results. And, you know, and the world goes round. People can sell those things and they can make money, and that's how influencers do it. So the same rules kind of apply here as with the productive office setup. It's important to recognize when you're being advertised to. It is important to recognize when someone is claiming to give you one thing, but then they're actually just giving you an advertisement for goods and services at the end of the day. This may be more or less intentional. You know, some people may actually believe in the value of the products that they are selling. So it's impossible to tell, of course, just how much somebody actually believes in this stuff. Maybe they do actually believe that by talking about all their gadgets, you know, they're unlocking for you the secret to productivity. Maybe they are just so, you know, obsessed with bar jacks that they're like, dang, this is making my deadlift sessions 9 times more productive, or whatever the case is. But, you know, it doesn't seem like it at the end of the day sometimes. I'm not leveling specific accusations against any specific YouTuber, but these kinds of videos, again, they're more often just a way to show off goods that they are trying to get you to purchase, which is, at the end of the day, what we would call an advertisement. So, as always, if you liked the video, don't hesitate to comment, subscribe, tell me what you want to see in future videos, send me hate mail, tell me I suck, whatever the case is. I'm always excited to hear from you. So, as always, don't hesitate to do all of those things, and I will see you all next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.